Hey everybody, Brent Boyer from Adam. Hey, so I wanted to talk today about timeline and waiting periods and how long does a divorce take. So a divorce with no children in Michigan, there's a minimum of 60 days for a waiting period, meaning from the date it's filed until the soonest it can be completed is 2 months. If there are minor children, so if you have children, there's a 6-month waiting period. So two different waiting periods depending on whether there are children from the marriage or there are not children from the marriage. So what these waiting periods mean, in particular with the minor children and the 6-month waiting period, you can get divorced sooner than 6 months if there's an exception. So if we have everything agreed, you've worked everything out, and you're all set, it's possible to be done more like 4 or 5 months into the process and be completely finished and the divorce is over with. So it's possible to be done in short of 6 months, but the waiting period, the law says you're required to wait for 6 months. When there are no children, there's only a 60-day waiting period. That's normally not going to get in the way. With a typical divorce process, it takes 2 months to get everything completed, get an agreement, and get things finalized. So those are the waiting periods. Those are, however, not typical time frames of how long a divorce can take, whether you have children or no children. So a divorce with no children, the 60-day waiting period, those are typically anywhere from 2 to 6 months is a normal amount of time for a divorce case to be completed from start to finish. A divorce with minor children can take anywhere, bare minimum with exceptions, 4 or 5 months, and more typical time frames somewhere 5 to 10 months on a divorce case with minor children. So that waiting period starts the date that you file for divorce. And if you're following our advice, you would be the one to file first, so you would start the clock running on the waiting period the date that you file the complaint. Now these waiting periods and the timeline for how long the divorce takes, those are not related to living apart. Michigan does not have any requirements for living separately before the divorce can be done, or living apart before you file or during. So you might be living apart, you might not be living apart, you might live apart some of the time. Those are not related to these waiting periods. There's no requirements on any of that. But in general, that's what you're looking at. A divorce is going to take somewhere 2 to 6 months, no children. With children, somewhere 5 to 10 months is a typical range. Of course, they can take longer, depending on the county, depending on the difficulty of the issues that you have, depending on a lot of other factors. Hopefully that helps. Thanks.